We are ready to print our second color. We want to make sure that we mix the color still pretty lightly. I'm going to, for my first color, I had 2 parts of transparent base to just a tiny touch of the blue ink. I'm going to mix closer to a 50-50 mix for this one. So again, just a little bit of blue. I still want it quite transparent. And I will pre-mix with my scrap of mat board so that once it gets distributed onto my roller, it's a pretty consistent color value from edge to edge. Okay, that looks quite dark. I'm going to check it on top of newsprint just to get an idea of how opaque that color really is once I get it rolled out. And I think I'm going to start with a real thin layer again. So maybe scrape back about half of this and save it. And just spread out a thin coat. It's possible that this color could be almost the same color with transparency in it as your first color. As long as you're using transparent base, the 2 layers of the pigment will double up. So even though it may not have changed the color itself very much, having a second layer of that same color may be enough of a change to create that second step on your print. And you can always go darker, but once you've printed it too dark, you can't go back and reprint that first color. So I'm going to try this value. It doesn't look a whole lot darker than my first one, but I think when it's added on top of the first color on the paper, it will appear a step darker. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it up. I don't have my block in my jig. I've just got it on a scrap of newsprint so I don't accidentally mess up the borders of my jig. And here's where I'm a little more careful. Now there's a lot of area cut away here. I want to be careful not to drop my roller down into those areas. So I'm orienting my roller so that it rolls perpendicular to the direction of those clearing cuts. Pick up a little bit more ink. And I'm looking at the amount of sheen that's on the ink. I want that to be nice and even. I don't want it over inked, but I also don't want it too thin of a layer where it won't transfer nicely. Take that ink all the way to the edge of the block. Be careful around your corners. You don't want to drop off the roller onto your newsprint if you don't have to. Okay, it looks like it's fairly shiny. I'm going to go ahead and move my newsprint out of the way and bring in my registration jig. And I don't remember which way I had my block line the first time, so I'm going to refer back to my printing paper to see which way I need to orient that to print. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like for the first one I had the handle going the other way, so I'm going to switch this around. You want to make sure you check that before you line up your printing paper. And that seems to be going the right way. I'm going to clean my hands. I can't tell if there's ink on there since I have gloves on, so I'm going to use a baby wipe and just clean the gloves real well, get any residue off. You can use these gloves over and over again as long as you've been cleaning them. Just to be safe so that I don't set my paper down into my inking slab, I'm going to set this out of the way for a minute. And move this center stage here. All right, so we're carefully repositioning. This is the paper that we printed our first color on. We're going to position it for the second color. Try to keep it up off the block while you're getting the pins attached, and then gently roll it down. Now this is the point where I'm going to try out my new template so that I have an idea where that block is. And underneath that thick paper. So you can kind of feel to confirm that you've got your stencil on the right side up. And then I still would use the parchment paper just to reduce the friction as you're doing the burnishing. But now I have a lot better idea of where exactly that corner of the block is, so I can be a little bit more careful as I approach those borders. Trying to hold the paper so that it's not slipping, and then go over the whole block inch by inch, using quite a bit of pressure, but again, being most careful near the edges so that you don't rip your paper or put a big dent into it. Let's check our progress here. As we go, oh, that looks pretty good. I see a few streaky spots in the middle I need to go over a little bit more, and I can also look on the block to see areas where the ink is a little bit thicker. That means I didn't press hard enough there. So maybe I'll try a slightly different rubbing pattern for the second time I go over it, using little swirls instead of stripes. Make sure I really get that center area a little bit better. One arm gets tired, switch hands. Let's take a peek at that now. Oh, that looks quite a bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my burnishing template. Carefully, try not to stretch those holes out as I pull it off the pins. And then carefully remove the paper as well. Let's see what we've got there. I'll turn it around for the camera. So one thing to be checking for the second color, you want to make sure that it's not too close to the first color that you printed. And you want to make sure that you still got room to go even darker. So I still can go to a little bit darker blue as well as my black. I plan to have 2 more colors. So if you feel like maybe you're too close to the dark end of the value scale already, you could add more transparent base. You could add a tiny bit of white, but the white will make it more opaque. So less of that first color will show through if you add white. I'd recommend trying transparent base first and seeing where you go. So at this point, it's once you're happy with your second color, you would go ahead and addition the whole series with the second color before you remove the third color. And print a few extras on newsprint or on drawing paper too, so that you have some to practice with. If you notice that there's some areas that you should have carved away that you forgot to carve away, this would be a good time to do that before you go ahead and print all of them. So you can make changes as you go, but each one of the changes becomes a different state. So this would be state 1, and then if I decide to cut more away to remains to keep some of those light blues in some of these shadow areas, that would actually be a different state, and it would not be part of my final edition.